Hey, you know what time it is? Woo! Hold on, I'm gonna try one more time. Woo! Get into it! Get into it! Yes! We are back! We are back with Storytime with Chris. Hi, hi, hi. How's everybody doing? Happy Valentine's Day. Happy St. Valentine's Day. And as I've said many a time in the past, Valentine's Day is not just a day solely for romantic love. It is the love of someone you truly do care for. Whether it's a family member, a dear friend, confidant, well, that's better. It's for us to spread the message of love. I'm a couple of minutes late, so I do apologize. I had just finished up. This is why, excuse me, I take my time. But before I start our reading for our special story tonight, which comes from Nordic Tales by Eula Thynell, which the story that we're reading tonight is one of my favorite fairy tales of all time. Not the, but one of them. Is East of the Sun, West of the Moon. There actually is a song about that fairy tale. And as I mentioned within my description on my post, it's the Norwegian answer to Beauty and the Beast. Which, fun fact, is if anybody remembers when I read Beauty and the Beast last Valentine's Day, Beauty and the Beast is one of the oldest fairy tales of all time. No matter the region, no matter the country, it is one of the oldest and it has been adapted in multiplicitous ways. And so, I wanted to read this particular story because I don't feel as though this newer generation knows it well enough. I've heard of this story and read the story when I was young. Goodness, I couldn't get my words out, I'm sorry. And I adored it because the main hero, well, we'll just get to that in the story. It's totally fine. Just gonna catch my breath just a little bit. Alright. And no, I don't own the music that you're listening to in the background. I was wondering. How's that? Okay, that's way better. Okay, so my mic is up just a bit. But I'm gonna try not to yell into the mic. But for those who don't know, Valentine's Day comes from the reign of the Roman Empire, and it was based off of Saint Valentine of Terni, and he basically was secretly marrying young couples against the will of the emperor because he felt as though love should be expressed and it should be consecrated in however the mutual parties wish to do that. And because of his selfless actions where he secretly married all of these young couples and helped them to be able to unionize their love through marriage, unfortunately Saint Valentine of Terni was put in prison, and he was not treated too kindly, is what I'm going to go ahead and use. He was not treated kindly. He was punished by the emperor for his disobedience and was later executed. And it's so interesting that somebody who is willing to go out of their way to help other people have the accessibility and the right to love and to express their love publicly and openly is a beautiful narrative I think we all can appreciate, because he married hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of couples in secret, knowing the full consequence of what he was going to do, and despite that he still did it. That is a true act of love, to support the love of two wonderful consenting people. So didn't know that, there it is. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and begin. Excuse me. Alright. east of the sun and west of the moon. There once was a poor tenant who had many children, but very little food or clothes to give them. They were all pretty children, but the prettiest was the youngest daughter, who was so lovely that there was almost too much of her loveliness. So one Thursday evening, late in the autumn, when there was a terrible weather, and it was dreadfully dark out of doors, and it rained and blew as well till the wall creaked, they were all sitting by the hearth, busy with something or other. All at once, someone knocked 3 times on the window pane. The good man went out to see what was the matter. When he came outside, he saw a great big white bear. "Good evening," said the white bear. "Good evening," said the man. "Will you give me your youngest daughter, and I will make you as rich as you are poor?" said the bear. Yes, the man thought it would be very nice to be so rich, but he must speak with his daughter first. So he went in and told her that a great white bear was outside who promised that he would make them rich if he could only get her. She said no, and would not agree to any such arrangement. So the man went out and arranged with the white bear that he should come again next Thursday evening for an answer. In the meantime, they talked her round and told her of all the riches they would come in possession of, and how fine she herself would have in her new home. So at last she gave in to their entreaties, and began washing and mending her few rags, and made herself look as well as she could, and was at last ready for the journey. Her baggage, of course, was not much to speak of. Next Thursday evening, the white bear came to fetch her. She got up on his back with her bundle, and away they went. When they had gone some distance, the white bear said, "Are you afraid?" No, she wasn't afraid. "Well, only hold tight by my coat, and there's no danger," said the bear. And so she rode far, far away, and came at last to a big mountain. The white bear knocked at it, and a gate was opened. They came into a castle where there were a great many rooms, all lit up and gleaming with silver and gold. And amongst these was a great hall, where a table stood ready laid. In fact, all was so grand and splendid that you would not believe it unless you saw it. So the white bear gave her a silver bell, which she was to ring whenever there was anything she wanted, and her wishes would be attended to at once. How's that for service? Well, then she had eaten. It was getting late in the evening, and she became sleepy after the journey, so she thought she would like to go to bed. She rang the bell, and had scarcely touched it before she was in a room where she found such a beautiful bed as anyone could wish for, with silken pillows and curtains and gold fringes. Everything else in the room was made of gold and silver. But when she had gone to bed and put out the light, she heard someone coming into the room and sit down in the big armchair near the bed. It was the white bear, who at night could throw off his shape, and she could hear by his snoring as he sat in the chair that he was now in the shape of a man, but she never saw him, because he always came after she had put out the light, and in the morning before the day dawned he was gone. Well, for a while everything went on happily, and then she began to be silent and sorrowful, for she went about all day all alone, and no wonder she longed to be home with her parents and her sisters and brothers again. When the white bear asked what ailed her, she said she was so lonely there she walked about all alone, and longed for her home and her parents and brothers and sisters, and that the reason she was so sad. "But you may visit them if you like," said the white bear, "if you will only promise me one thing. You must never talk alone with your mother, but only when there are others in the room. She will take you by the hand and try to lead you into a room to speak with you all by herself, but you must not do this by any means, or you will make us both unhappy and bring misfortune onto us." Pay attention to that detail, because it's going to be important later. Actually, I'm going to move you right here. That's fine, because I can project. One Sunday, the white bear came and told her that they were now going to see her parents. After they went, she sitting on his back, and they traveled far and long. At last they came to a grand white farmhouse, where her sisters and brothers were running about. Everything was so pretty that it was a pleasure to see it.
"Your parents are living there," said the bear, "but mind you, don't forget what I have said, or you will make us both unhappy."
No, she would not forget it. When they came to the farm, the bear turned away and went. Excuse me. There was such a joy when she came into her parents that there was no end to it. They said they did not know how to thank her fully for what she had done for them. They had everything they wanted, and everybody asked after her and wanted to know how she was going on and where she was living. She said that she was very comfortable and had everything she wished for. But what she otherwise answered, I don't know, but I believe they did not get much out of her. But one day after dinner it happened exactly as the white bear had said. Her mother wanted to speak with her alone in her chamber, but she recollected what the bear had told her and would not go with her. "What have we got to talk about? We can do it at some other time," she said. But somehow or other her mother talked her around at last, and so she had to tell her everything. She told her how a man came into her room every night as soon as she had put out the light, and how she never saw him, for he was always gone before the day dawned. She was sorrowful at this, for she thought she would so like to see him, and in the daytime she walked about there all alone and felt very lonely and sad. "Oh, dear me," said her mother, "it may be a troll for all we know, but I will tell you how you can get a sight of him. You shall have a piece of candle from me, and this you must take with you home in your pouch. When he is asleep, light that candle. But take care not to drop any of the tallow on him." Tallow, kids, is basically the wax of the candle. When a candle is lighted or a flame, it drips the wax until there is no more left. Yes, she took the candle and hid it in her pouch, and in the evening the white bear came and fetched her. When they had gone some distance of the way, the bear asked her if everything had happened as he had said. Yes, she couldn't deny that.
"Well, if you have listened to your mother's advice, you will make us both unhappy, and all will be over between us," said the bear.
No, that she hadn't. When she came home and had gone to bed, the same thing occurred as before. Someone came into the room and sat in the armchair by her bedside, but in the middle of the night, when she heard that he was asleep, she got up and struck a light, lit the candle, and let the light fall on him. She then saw that he was the loveliest prince anyone could wish to see, and she fell at once in love with him. She thought that if she could not kiss him there, then she would not be able to live. And so she did, but she dropped 3 hot drops of tallow on him, and he woke up. "What have you done?" he said. "You have now made us both unhappy forever, for if you had only held out 1 year, I should have been saved. I have a stepmother who has bewitched me, and I am now a white bear by day and a man by night. But now all is over between us, and I must leave you and go back to her. She lives in a castle which lies east of the sun and west of the moon, and in the same castle there is a princess with a nose 2 yards long that I now must marry." That is a long nose, I'm just saying. She wept and cried, but there was no help for it. He must go and leave her, so she asked him if she might not go with him. No, that was impossible. "But if you will tell me the way, I will try and find you," she said. "I suppose I may leave to do that?" Yes, she could do that, he said, but there was no road to that place. It lay east of the sun and west of the moon, and she could never find her way there. Next morning, when she awoke, both the prince and the castle were gone. She lay on a little green field far in the middle of the dark, thick forest, and by her side lay the same bundle with her old rags which she had brought with her from home. When she had rubbed the sleep out of her eyes and wept till she was tired, she set out of her way and walked for many, many a day, till she at last came to a big mountain. Close to it an old woman sat and played with a golden apple. She asked if she knew the way to the prince who lived with his stepmother in a castle that lay east of the sun and west of the moon, and who was going to marry a princess with a nose 2 yards long. "How do you know him?" asked the old woman. "Perhaps it was you who should have had him." Yes, it was she. "Ah, indeed, is that you?" said the woman. "Well, all I know is that he lives in the castle which lies east of the sun and west of the moon, and thither you will come late or never, but I will lend you my horse, and on him you can ride to my neighbor, an old friend of mine. Perhaps she can help you. When you have got there, just give my horse a blow with your whip under the left ear and ask him to go home again, and you had better take this golden apple with you." So she got up on the horse and rode a long time till she at last came to a mountain where an old woman was sitting with a golden carding comb. She asked if she knew the way to the castle which lay east of the sun and west of the moon. She answered, like the first old woman, that she didn't know anything about it, but it was sure to be east of the sun and west of the moon. "And thither you will come, early or late, and I will lend you my horse as far as my neighbor. Perhaps she can tell you. When you've got there, just give my horse a blow under the left ear, and ask him to go home again." And the old woman gave her the golden carding comb, which might come in useful for her. The young girl got up on the horse and rode for a long, weary time, and came at last to a large mountain where an old woman was sitting and spinning on a golden spinning wheel. She asked if she knew the way to the prince, and where the castle was that lay east of the sun and west of the moon. See, it's a pattern. Keep paying attention, because it's going to pay off later. And so came the same question. "Perhaps it is you who should have had the prince." Yes, it was, but the old woman knew the way no better than the other two. It was east of the sun and west of the moon, she knew that. "And thither you will come, early or late," she said, "but I will lend you my horse, and I think you had better ride to the east wind and ask him. Perhaps he is known about those parts and can blow you there. When you have got there, just touch the horse under the ear, and he'll go home again." And so she gave her the golden spinning wheel. "You might find use for it," said the old woman. She rode on many days for a long weary time before she got to the east wind. But after a long time she did not reach it, and so she asked him if he could tell her the way to the prince, who lived east of the sun and west of the moon. Yes, he had heard tell of that prince, said the east wind, and of the castle too, but he didn't know the way thither, for he had never blown so far.
"But if you like, I'll go with you to my brother the west wind. Perhaps he may know it, for he is much stronger. Just get up on my back, and I'll carry you thither."
Thither, kids, is a very old, antiquated way of saying there. Hither is here, thither is there. Hither and thither. Hitherto, so on and so forth. Come hither, come hither, come here. Alright. Yes, she did so, and away they went at a great speed. When they got to the west wind, they went to him, and the east wind told him that his companion was the one who should have had the prince who lived in the castle which lay east of the sun and west of the moon, and she was now on her way to find him, and so he had gone with her to hear if the west wind knew where that castle was. "No, I've never blown so far," said the west wind. "But if you like, I'll go with you to the south wind, for he's much stronger than any of us and has been far and wide. Perhaps he may tell you. You better sit up on my back, and I'll carry you thither." Well, she got on his back, and off they started for the south wind. They weren't long on the way, I can tell you. When they got there, the west wind asked his brother if he could tell him the way to the castle which lay east of the sun and west of the moon. His companion was the one who should have had the prince who lived there. "Oh, indeed," said the south wind. "Is that she? Well, I've been a many a nook and corner in my time, but so far I have never blown. But if you like, I'll go with you to my brother the north wind. He is the oldest and strongest of us all, and if he doesn't know where it is, you will never be able to find anyone who can tell you. Just get up on my back, and I'll carry you thither." Yes, she sat up on his back, and away they went at such a rate of speed that the way didn't seem to be very long. When they got to where the north wind lived, he was so wild and unruly the cold gusts were felt a long way off.
What do you want?
He shouted from far away, but still it made them shiver all over. Oh, you needn't be so very harsh, said the South Wind. It's I, your own brother, and that I've got her with me who should have had the prince who lives in the castle, which lies east of the sun and west of the moon. And she wants to ask you if you've ever been there and if you could tell her the way. She's very anxious to find him again.
Well, yes, I do know where it is, said the North Wind. I once blew an aspen leaf thither, but I was so tired that I wasn't able to blow for many days after. But if you really intend going there and you're not afraid to come with me, I will take you on my back and try if I can blow you as far as I can.
Yes, she was willing. She must go thither, if it were possible, one way or another, and she wasn't a bit afraid. Go how it would.
Very well, said the North Wind. You must stop here tonight, then, for we must have a whole day before us, and perhaps more, if we are to...
Ooh. Hold on, y'all. I dropped my mic. Hold on. Is that Leo? Hi. Thank you for watching. Appreciate that. Oh, goodness. It's no big deal. All right. Where was I? Yes. Early next morning, the North Wind called her, and then he blew himself out and made himself so big and strong that he was terrible to look at. Away they went, high up through the air at such a fearful speed as if they were going to the end of the world. There was such a hurricane on land that trees and houses were blown down, and when they came out on the big sea ships were wrecked by hundreds, and onwards they swept so far, far, that no one would believe how far they went, and still farther and farther out to sea, till the North Wind got more and more tired, and so knocked up that he was scarcely able to give another and was sinking and going down more and more, and at last they were so low that the tops of the billows touched their heels.
Are you afraid? Said the North Wind.
No, she said. She wasn't a bit afraid. But they were not so very far from land, either, and the North Wind had just sufficient strength left to reach the shore and put her off just under the windows of the castle, which lay east of the sun and west of the moon. But he was then so tired and worn out that he had to rest for many days before he could start on his way home again. Next morning she sat down under the castle windows and began playing with the golden apple, and the first one she saw was the princess with the long nose, whom the prince was going to marry.
"What do you want for the golden apple of yours?"
she asked, and opened the casement. "It is not for sale, neither for gold nor money," said the girl.
"If it isn't for sale for gold or money, what do you want for it then?" said the princess. "I'll give you what you ask."
"Well, if I tonight may sit in the armchair by the bedside of the prince who lives there, you shall have it," said the girl who came with the North Wind. Yes, she might do that. There would be no difficulty about that. So the princess got the golden apple, but when the girl came up into the prince's bedroom in the evening, he was fast asleep. She called him and shook him, and then she cried and wept, but no, she could not wake him so that she might speak to him. Next morning, as soon as the dawn came, the princess with the long nose came and turned her out of the room. Later in the day, she sat down under the castle windows and began carding with her golden carding comb, and then the same thing happened again. The princess asked what she wanted for the carding comb. A carding comb is a type of comb that is able to comb through thick hair. It's the basic way to describe it. And she told her that it wasn't for sale, neither for gold nor money, but if she might get leave to sit in the armchair by the prince's bedside that night, she should have it. But when she came up to the bedroom, she found him fast asleep again. And for all she cried and shook him, for all she wept, he slept so soundly that she could not get life into him. And when the day dawned in the early morning, in came the princess with the long nose and turned her out of the room again. So as the day wore on, she sat down under the castle windows and began spinning on the spinning wheel that the princess with the long nose wanted also to have. She opened the casement and asked the girl what she wanted for it. The girl told her, as she had done twice before, that it was not for sale either for gold or money, but if she might sit in the armchair by the prince's bedside, that night she should have it. Yes, she might do that. But there were some Christian people who had been carried off and were imprisoned in the room next to the prince's, and they had heard that some woman had been in his room and wept and cried and called his name 2 nights running, and this they told the prince. Interesting. In the evening, when the princess came and brought him his drink, he made appear as if he drank it, but he threw it over his shoulder, for he felt sure she had put a sleeping draught in his drink. So basically, she gave him a sleeping potion. That's why he wasn't able to wake up. So when the girl came into this room that night, she found the prince wide awake, and she told him that she had come there. "You have just come in time," said the prince, "for tomorrow I was to be married to the princess. But I won't have that long nose, and you are the only one who can save me. I will say that I shall want to see what my bride can do, and if she is fit to be my wife, then I will ask her to wash the shirt with the 3 tallow stains on it. She will try, for she does not know that it is you who dropped the tallow on the shirt, but that she can only be done by other folks and not by a pack of trolls like we have in this place. And so I will say that I will not have anybody else for a bride except the one who can wash the shirt clean. And I know you can do that." And they felt very glad and happy, and they went on talking all night about the joyful time in store for them. The next day, when the wedding was to take place, the prince said, "I think I must first see what my bride can do." "Yes, quite so," said the stepmother. "I've got a very fine shirt which I am going to use for my wedding shirt, but there are 3 tallow stains on it which I want washed out. And I've made a vow that I will not take any other woman for a wife than the one who is able to do that. If she cannot do that, she is not worth having," said the prince. "Well, that was easy enough," said the stepmother, and agreed to this trial. Well, the princess with a long nose set to washing the best she could, but the more she washed, the bigger grew the stains. "Why, you cannot wash it," said the old witch, her stepmother. "Let me try." But no sooner did she take the shirt than it got still worse, and the more she washed and rubbed, the bigger and blacker the stains grew. So did the other trolls trying their hands at washing, but the longer they worked, the dirtier the shirt grew, till at last it looked as if it had been up the chimney. "Ah, you're not worth anything, the whole lot of you," said the prince. "There's a poor girl under the window just outside there, and I'm sure she can wash much better than any of you. Come in, my girl," he shouted out to her. Yes, she would come in. "Can you wash this shirt clean?" asked the prince. "Well, I don't know," she said, "but I will try." And no sooner had she taken the shirt and dipped it in the water than it was as white as the driven snow, if not whiter. "Yes, you shall be my wife," said the prince. But the old witch flew into such a rage that she burst, and the princess with the long nose and all the trolls must have burst also, for I have never heard of them since. The prince and his bride then set forth all the people who had been carried off and imprisoned there, and so they took as much gold and silver with them as they could carry, and moved far away from the castle, which lay east of the sun and west of the moon. The end. You know, I don't care how old you get, fairy tales are amazing. They teach us so many powerful lessons that we often take for granted. This girl could have easily given up. She's fearless, she's strong, smart, she knows her worth, she knows how to negotiate. And as long as you believe in yourself and have faith in your journey, good things will come to you. When you, as people always say, when you manifest it, which is very valid and very real, but I feel like a lot of people play with that phrase too loosely. But when you truly want something out of the universe and work hard for it and have faith and belief and ingenuity behind it, life will bless you and bring you things that you need. And this girl could have easily given up. She walked into many a roadblock, but she kept going because Even before she saw his face, she loved the generosity of the prince, and the kindness that he showed her, and the lengths of which he would do to make her wishes come true. The fine clothes, a good bed, a beautiful castle, with gold filigree and so on. And the fact that she is the hero of this story is why I read this story. Because love, no matter the distance, no matter the time, love is truly everlasting and will constantly beat any odds that life may bring to you. I'll see you next time, y'all. Happy St. Valentine's Day. See ya.